Among other things, we're going to be discussing a card that's near and dear to my heart and never causes any controversy and always allows the games to end quickly. Let's talk about Rhystic Study. All right, guys, it's Craig Mack. I'm back for episode number 4 of the Pregame podcast, your weekly stop for tournament results, cEDH news, deck techs, and everything happening in Competitive Commander. We've got a lot to talk about this week, from some tournament results, some cool new tech, and the possible banning of Rhystic Study. Let's jump into the biggest stories, hottest decks, and events you should know about this week. All right, guys, so for tournament report this week, as I mentioned earlier, it was a lull for big events. I think people are hunkered down, getting ready for the Fishbowl 7, which you should all be at. Breach at the Bay, the Excalibur events. So we had 2 events that fired that were over 50 players. We had the Horizon tournament on June 20th and the Best in the West Gold qualifier on June 20th with 51 players. We'll take a look at the Horizon tournament and a few standout decks from there. We'll also look at the Siege 10K, the winners list, Jason Doan's, his Kinnan list, a few interesting card choices that I think helped propel him to first place. And we'll take a look at Zach Adler's Scion of the Dragon list. It's a very interesting deck list. It's picked up in popularity over the last couple of weeks. I know I played against Comedian and his list at the LobbyCon at Siege Level 7 the night before. And then I sat down with Zach in the morning right before the tournament, and we were scrambling to find cards to replace things. Just wanted to go over with you quickly and show you some of the cool inclusions and what it's trying to do. So let's jump into it. All right, so the first event we're going to take a look at was the Horizon tournament. June 20th, 60 players. The metagame was wide open, and this is like a drum I keep beating for cEDH. One of the healthiest metagames I've ever seen in a competitive format. There is a ton of decks here. There's only 2 entries for most of them. So we have Kinnan with 2, we have Raw with 2, we have Terra with 2, Rakdos the Muscle with 2. Down here we have Blue Farm with 4, but no top cuts, no conversions. TNT with 2, Timidargo with 2, Marnius Kaldar with 2, Rog Sai, Rog Thras with 2. There's Turbo, there's Control, there's Mid-Range, there's Stacks, there's 5-color piles. There's something for everybody. So metagame breakdown, not much to discern from here, just everybody's playing what they like and doing well with it. As far as the tournament itself goes, it looks like Hayward Charles won this tournament on Raw Monsoon Mage. Hayward's a monolith player and puts up results with Raw constantly. I would consider them one of the better pilots of Raw in the country. So let's just take a look at Hayward Charles' Raw list and see if there's anything different, anything that jumps out at us, any new inclusions. Looks like for creature package, normal creature package for Raw. Sorcery wise, looks like we are in Flow State. Flow State is a new card from Strixhaven. This is 1 blue pip, 1 colorless pip sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the rest of them bottom of your library in any order. If there is an instant card and a sorcery card in your graveyard, and put 2 of them into your hand and the rest in the bottom of your library. So this is just usually 1 mana with the RAL reduction. You usually have that condition met with the instant and sorcery, and you're looking at 3 and drawing 2. Fantastic card for Raw. Anything else of note? Storm of Memories is a really cool card. Essentially just another Mind's Desire. Storm, exile an instant and sorcery card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard at random. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. There's tons of redundancy in this deck, so every under 3 mana is either drawing you cards, revealing cards, wheeling the table, or making mana. So this is just like another Mind's Desire for your graveyard after you stormed off a bit. Instant wise, normal package here as well. Guess of note, we are on Flashback, which is popping up more and more. I think it's fantastic in Turbo decks. I do think it's actually pretty good in some control lists as well. It looks like a standard list for RAL. So just to talk about RAL quickly, if you are new to cEDH, if you've not played RAL, if you're sitting down against it and you do not know how to stop this deck, first of all, it's hard to stop. It is one of the premier turbo decks in the format, if not the best. It looks to cast a turn 1 RAL or turn 2 RAL at the latest and then push the following turn. So it's one of these commanders that I deem kill on sight, RAL, Arkham, things like that. Let's just talk about RAL. Monsoon Mage is a red pip and a colorless pip, legendary creature. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Everything in this deck is 2 mana. If you go back to this, either makes mana or reveal cards at the top of your library, puts them in exile, wheels the table, or draws you cards. That is the whole strategy, right? Like it just jams a RAL down, untaps, and just starts tossing spells at you and making it nearly impossible for you to stop it, because it's just generating so much value that it's hard to figure out when to interact with it. The second part of this text, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell during your turn, flip a coin. If you lose a flip, RAL Monsoon Mage deals 1 damage to you. If you win the flip, you may exile RAL. If you do, return it to the battlefield transformed under your own control. When you transform RAL, Planeswalker, RAL Leyland Prodigy enters the battlefield with an additional loyalty counter on it for each instant and sorcery spell you cast this turn. So you generate a big storm count. Eventually you get to the point where you think flipping RAL is worthwhile or beneficial for you, or you're forced to do so. It's +1 ability until your end of your turn. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So you are losing your reduction after you flip Rals. And then the -8 abilities. Exile the top 8 cards of your library. You may cast instant and sorcery spells from among them this turn without paying their mana. So you do all your storm stuff. You generate all this mana, all this card advantage. You flip Ral, -8 him, and you just keep going. It's just, and then if Ral gets back to the command zone, you cast Ral again, and you start again. So the deck just keeps going and going and going, cobbling together some manual storm win lines. And there's cEDH, there's tons of them. There's tons of them in the deck. There's Grape Shot. When you breach, you just Grape Shot again, you Grape Shot again, you Grape Shot again, Grape Shot the table out. So after you just start storming off forever. There's Underworld Breach, there's Brain Freeze, you can freeze them out, make them draw a card with Wheel of Fortune, you can Grape Shot them out, you can bonus round Grape Shot them out. There's just a million ways you can win with this deck after you've assembled an unlimited amount of resources, and it's nearly impossible for them to interact with you. There's also just Mind's Desire, right? Like Mind's Desire for 10, 15 cards is just game over in general. But if you're playing against Ral, how do you stop this deck? Like I mentioned earlier, it is hard to stop. But when Ral gets cast turn 1, unprotected, bounce him, kill him, counter him. I will force a Will Ral with Ral Geshai if I have no other way to interact with it and I don't have like a fish down or Rhystic. Even if you have a fish or a Rhystic down, Ral can push straight into that and get through it a lot of the times. The cleanest way, interact with Ral, counter Ral. After that, once they've got Ral on the table and they start pushing and going off, you need to stop, you need to pinch them on mana. So like there's going to come a point while they're storming off, and sometimes this is hard to ascertain. When is the pinch point? It's either the pinch point's either on cards, which that's rarely it, but it's usually on mana. So it's on a Jessica's Will. It's on a Rite of Flame. It's on one of their Seething Songs, their Pyretic Rituals, their Treasonous Ogres, their Stormkiln Artists. You need to know when this is the spell to stop. And sometimes it's hard to figure that out. But trust me on this one, it's usually interacting with mana at an inopportune moment. I don't care how much interaction you have in your hand, how many cards you're drawing from Mystic Remorseless or Rhystic Study. You're not going to be able to stop it. Identify the pinch point on mana, identify the choke point on mana, talk with the table, figure out how to try to stop them at that point and hope they do not have the interaction to go again. That's Ral in a nutshell. Congrats, Hayward, for winning the event. All right, so the next deck I wanted to take a look at from the Horizon tournament was Donna Pulley and their Gwenom the Remorseless list. Gwenom the Remorseless is one of those decks that just shows up to cEDH tournaments and does well sometimes. If people aren't prepared for it, if they don't know what it's trying to do, if they don't interact with the command, bounce the commander, kill the commander, a lot like Ral, it's going to put up numbers. So what does Gwenom the Remorseless do? Gwenom the Remorseless is the best Bolas Citadel deck in cEDH, mainly because the Bolas Citadel sits in the end zone. Gwenom the Remorseless is 2 black, 3 colorless pips, Death Touch, Lifelink. When Gwenom attacks until the end of your turn, you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may play that card from the top of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana value rather than pay its mana cost. So it's a Bolas Citadel on a stick. Your entire game plan in this deck is figuring out a way to cast Gwenom the Remorseless turn 1, turn 2, and at the very latest, turn 3. So the whole deck is tuned to do that. You're playing Blood Pet. You're playing Calling the Weak, Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, all of the mana rocks. You're playing Lion's Eye Diamond. Of course, you're playing Diamond Lion, who's a backup Lion's Eye Diamond, because you don't care. You're getting rid of your hand because your entire deck's going to be your hand once you turn it sideways. So Jet Medallion to make everything cheaper. This deck just wants to land a Gwenom, slap a skateboard on that sucker, give it haste, Lava Spur Boots, Lightning Greaves, Crashing Drawbridge up here, and just attack. You don't need to connect with the attack. You just need to turn it sideways to that. So one of the coolest combos that I like in this deck is Death Cultist. On the surface, seems like a normal little guy, right? Death Cultist, Human Wizard, 1 black pip, 1/1. Sacrifice Death Cultist, target player loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. What if you have a Mortuary on the table? This is a 4-mana enchantment, 1 black, 3 colorless. Whenever any creature is put into your graveyard from play, put that creature on top of your library. You will sacrifice the Death Cultist, target player loses 1 life, you'll gain 1 life, it'll go to the top of your library. You'll cast it with the Bolas Citadel effect. You'll sacrifice it again. Target player loses 1 life. You gain 1 life ad nauseum until you ping the table out, right? Just a clean win line. You've got the old tried and true Exquisite Blood, Sanguine Bond line. Whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. Sanguine Bond reads, whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. That creates a loop. You have backups for this. Enduring Tenacity. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. You've got Bloodthirsty Conqueror. Whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. So you've got redundancy here. You've got one of my favorite Magic cards of all time, Gary, the Grey Merchant of Asphodel. When Grey Merchant of Asphodel enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black. You gain life equal to life lost this way. You're going to cast this. You're going to reanimate this. You're going to drain the table out. Just a fantastic card to restock your life total. and keep going. I mean, we're playing Doomsday. Pay half your life, round it up, put your graveyard on top of your library, then remove all the 5 cards of your library from the game, put the rest on the top of your library in any order. So you're just sculpting down to 5. We casting them for life off the top of the library. You'll assemble any win line you want, any protection you want. Doomsday is cracked in this deck. You have old Chain of Smog, Professor Onyx. If you don't know this one, Professor Onyx reads Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Chain of Smog reads, target player discards 2 cards from his or her hand. That player may copy this spell and may choose a new target for that copy. You're targeting yourself. You're discarding your hand. You're targeting yourself again. You're targeting yourself again. You're targeting yourself again. You're targeting yourself again until you drain the table out. Notably, you're discarding your hand, but who cares because you're casting things off the top of your library. You don't need a hand. You know what works well? Bull Citadel, Sensei's Divining Top, and Aetherflux Reservoir. Sensei's Divining Top, 1 mana, look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. That's good to keep going. But the important bit, tap, draw a card, then put Sensei's Divining Top on top of its owner's library. So you get stuck, tap the Divining Top, put it on top, do 1 life, play it again, do the same thing. Now you're saying you're paying 1 life every time. What if you have an Aetherflux Reservoir out as well? So you are paying 1 life every time, but whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you've cast this turn. You'll keep casting the Divining Top. You'll keep gaining life. You will dome the table out with a Reservoir. Oldie but goodie, Bull Citadel win. And who says Storm's just for red decks? You have Tendrils of Agony. You can just cast a bunch of spells when you're going off with Gwenom. Tendrils of Agony, say for 15 or 20. Keep going. You'll gain life. You'll find the biggest threat, hit them with it. So if this deck's not just straight out winning, ways for you to manipulate your library so you don't get stuck on lands. You'll have the scry creatures and like Visara Seer, Umber Collar Zealot. You're playing artifacts like Codex Shredder, Wand of Vertebrae, Pandemonium that will allow you to manipulate the top of your library so you're not going to stall out. Again, this is the best Bola Citadel deck in the format. Once you turn that thing sideways, you're going to win the game. Gwenom, the Remorseless in a nutshell. Really awesome cEDH deck. Donna, congratulations on your finish. All right, so the next event I wanted to talk about was the Siege cEDH 10K on June 13th in Boulder, Colorado, run by Level 7 Games. It had 308 players. The player pool was absolutely stacked, so we had a lot of the top players from across the country, so it was a lot of fun to play in. The meta for Denver is usually sloptastic, a lot of stack interaction, a lot of playing on top of each other. So I think that influenced a lot of people's choices heading into this tournament. One of the biggest decks we see here is Rog Thros with 25 entries with a 20% conversion well. Rog Thros, as we noted before on this podcast, plays very well in the slop. Drops a lot of creatures that are hard to interact with. Activates Thrasios a ton, so not drawing the other deck's cards. And it sits there and gets there. Blue Farm had 20 entries and 20% conversion rate. Kinnan was the most popular deck with 35 entries and a 14% conversion rate. Also won the event. 2 players in the top 4, both Jason and Logan, who had an amazing game and one that I suggest you guys watch. Rog Ishai had 9 entries, 33% conversion rate. This was a lot of the Utah guy, the Salt guy on their Rog Ishai list, which is very split second heavy. It took 13th in the event on a very similar list to them, 1 or 2 cards off. Let's see if there's anything else notable for standouts. Sisse had 12 entries and 16% conversion rate, so that's pretty high as well. Raw, huge conversion rate, and I think people were probably scared of playing Raw and do a slop meta, but some of these pilots are well adept at just knowing when to push. Pigeon was, I think, 2nd place after Swiss or 3rd place after Swiss, and it was in the top 4 pod. Jason Doan or Fino Dreams. Jason is consistently one of the better players in cEDH. Hard to nail down with making deal that it can infuriate people sometimes, but I appreciate that. Don't make a deal that's going to lose you the game. Don't agree to anything that's going to lose you the game. Their Kinnan list is pretty straightforward. There's a few cards that I'm going to call out here that I think are notable. And things that are worthwhile including in your Kinnan list if you're moving forward. So right off the rip, Volatile Stormdrake. When we were talking about commanders earlier that are they hit the table, you need to figure out a way to deal with them. You don't want to just counter them, have them recast. Volatile Stormdrake is a very clean answer to that. So when Volatile Stormdrake enters the battlefield, exchange control of Volatile Stormdrake with target creature and opponent controls. If you do, you get 4 energy, then sacrifice the creature unless you pay him of energy equal to its mana value. Doesn't matter. You're grabbing Ral, you're grabbing Arc, Tyam, all these commanders that are just a nightmare to deal with. And Volatile Stormdrake is a great call in this meta. That's why I think the Chud's TNT list was doing so well. They're playing Double Drake again, so they're on Gilded Drake and Volatile Stormdrake. Great card, great meta choice. Going along with that, there's another split second spell that popped up both in Jason and Logan's list, which is Sudden Substitution. This is a bit pricey, but with Kinnan, mana is usually not an issue. This is 2 blue pips, 2 colorless pips, instant, split second. So this hits the stack. Triggers are going off. But that's it. The spell is going to resolve. Exchange control of target non-creature spell and target creature. Then that spell's controller may choose new targets for it. So you're either stealing a spell off the stack and giving them a dork, or you're stealing a Stormkiln Artist, you're stealing their Kinnan, you're stealing any of these problematic creatures. This happens at split second speed. You're stealing their Valley Flood Caller, you're stealing their High-Fee Trickster. It is just an absolutely broken spell. Notably, you can put something that's worthless on the stack or react when something's worthless on the stack. So your snap's not going to resolve, your snap, that creature's already gone. You can sudden sub and take their best creature. Take a Cyclonic Rift. It's just a very versatile spell. Again, going back to, hey, Denver's full of slop. Emrakul of Providence End is a great parity breaker. So you untap on your turn. There's a guy set up to win. There's multiple people set up to win. You cast Emrakul of Providence End. Costs 1 less to cast for each card type among cards in your graveyard. And when you cast Emrakul, you gain control of target opponent during that player's next turn. After that turn, that player takes an extra turn. Flying, trample, protection from instants, 13/13. Those usually don't matter. The important bit is you pick out the problem at the table, you cast Emrakul, you gain control of their turn, you make them lose the game, you make another player waste interaction. You can take out 2 players at the table fairly easy with this. You're going to attack with creatures they don't want to attack with, cast spells they don't want to cast, blow interaction they don't want to blow, and just completely tuck 1 to 2 players at the table. Emrakul, when you're playing into slop, you think you're going to make those top tables, is a silver bullet to have that could just come down and just completely swing the game that looks locked. Let's talk about Colossal Sky Turtle. This is one of my favorite cards in Magic. I play it in TNT all the time. It's one of my flex slots when I play no-bet cards Kinnan. I'm not even going to bother reading the casting costs. Flying Ward 2, 6/5. We don't care about that stuff. If you hit it off a Kinnan flip, you're probably not even putting it into play. You're going to keep it in your library. The 2 channel effects. Channel, green and 2 color. Largely hard to interact with unless you're trick binding, stifling it. Discard Colossal Sky Turtle, return target card from your graveyard. Say your Valley gets killed, say your Basalt gets countered and not exiled. Say you have interaction that you need. You channel this thing, get it back to your hand, instant speed, largely uninteractable with. The second channel ability is just as good. Blue and colorless, discard Colossal Sky Turtle, return target creature to its owner's hand. This gets around silence effects. This gets around Hexing Squelcher being uncounterable. This can bounce problematic Stormkiln, Commander. So the versatility of this card is very high. You're paying like 1 extra mana for these effects, but in Kinnan you usually don't care. Fantastic include. Finally, we're going to look at Step Through. This was in Logan's list. Logan's list is a little bit different than Jason's, a few cards off. Logan had the best run in Swiss. I thought they had the finals game locked up, but Jason and them played an amazing stack back, and one that I suggest watching if you are learning cEDH, learning when to interact, and how fast things can swing when you think it's already done. Step Through, 5 mana sorcery, return 2 target creatures to their owner hands. You're not using that. The important bit of text here is wizard cycling too. Most of the time you're using this to go find your Valley Flood Column, or you're finding your High-Fee Trickster. So it's a way to find your instant speed pushes at instant speed that cannot be interacted with. Trophy Mage is also a wizard. You can wizard cycle, find the Trophy Mage, cast Trophy Mage, find your Basalt Monolith. Step Through is just a really versatile card, instant speed, hard to interact with, find your flash lines, find your Basalt. The final list I wanted to take a look at was Zach Adler and their Scion of the Ur-Dragon list. I think they took 18th. They had a pretty good run. Scion of the Ur-Dragon is popping up more and more in cEDH. It's getting picked up by good players. It is a 5-color pile, so it doesn't surprise me that they're doing well with it. It's a combination of the best cards in cEDH, mana that enables turbo win lines, and it can also pivot into a very controlling game that can win through the slop. Notably, Zach has changed his name to ban Rhystic Study. We'll be talking about that later. But Scion of the Ur-Dragon, how does it enable different lines in a 5-color pile? 1 of each pip, flying for 2, search your library for a dragon card and put it into your graveyard. If you do, Scion of the Ur-Dragon becomes a copy of that card until the end of the turn, and shuffle your library. Zach is on 3 pretty big hits for dragons. One of my favorites, if you watch the channel, Prismari the Inspiration. 7 mana dragon, flying ward, pay 5 life. Instant and sorcery spells you cast have Storm. Ability is absolutely busted, and when you're playing a turbo deck, putting 4 Rite of Flames on the stack, putting 3 ad nauseams on the stack, you're only going to really resolve 1. 4 silences on the stack. It turns all of your interaction into my interaction cannot be countered. Just a really great card to flip a Scion. Corvold, the Fake Cursed King, kind of like a 5-color Corvold deck. We put a Corvold into play. Just starting sacrificing all the treasures you have with Stormkiln, Smothering Top, Lotho, Taru, all these things, you're just drawing your deck. Then once you draw a bunch of cards, you can just put another activation of Scion on the battlefield and put something else in play. Say you need treasures. How about Ancient Copper Dragon just coming out of nowhere, doming somebody, you're generating 10 treasures with your Scion. My list is running the Dramoka for the silence of, but you just have all the normal 5-color good stuff in the deck. Happy to see it doing well. Congratulations to Zach on their 18th place finish. All right, so the last thing I want to look at for the tournament report, kind of a cEDH metagame breakdown. This is a segment I want to do month. What we did for this is we went to EDH top 16. If you are a commander player or you are a cEDH player, this is a fantastic. What we did was set the parameters to top cut, the time period for 1 month. So the most recent events, minimum entry is 20 plus. So you're weeding out the fringe decks, tournament size 100 players plus. So we're weeding out local nodes out, kind of looking at the top results. And I think the top results are pretty telling. What I say constantly, the cEDH metagame is very diverse. It's very healthy. So people are showing up with what they want to play and doing well with it. Notably, on this, you hear about Rhystic Hell, you hear about Slot. But when you look at this top 16 decks, let's look at the straight turbo lists that are on here. Right? You've got Ral, nearly a 14% conversion rate, which was one of the highest. You've got Rogsai. You've got Vivi. You've got Malcolm Vile with a 23% conversion rate. You've got Mack, you've got Atali, you've got Tim Nadargo with a 6% conversion rate. Sorry, Jordan. Sorry, Avery. Bet some of those were you. And you've got a Crick, right? So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hard turbo decks in the top 16. So nearly half them is already, full send turbo, turn order simulator, however you want to put it. 8 decks in the top 16. 8. Then you hear about Rhystic Hell and you hear about the slop decks, the mid-range decks. If you're looking at straight mid-range here, you got Kinnan, you got TNT, and Rogish, kind of more of just straight control deck. I would put it out of mid-range and just straight control. That's it. So 1, 2, 3. Farm is a hybrid. It can either, depending on the list we're looking at here, it's either Turbo Farm, which I think is too slow for the current meta, with the 8 other decks being faster than it. So a lot of them are pivoting towards a more mid-range slop style farm, control farm, if you will. Matt Hayes' build of it, which I think is the best one. So at best, you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 mid-range control decks compared to 8 turbo decks. The conversion rates are a little higher on these because Blue Farm is just generally piloted by good players. Top cut 17, 14% conversion rate. Kinnan, tons of top cuts, terrible conversion rate. Rogishai, great conversion rate, low top cuts, very hard deck to pilot. TNT, terrible conversion rate, not many top cuts. So when you hear about Rhystic Hell, mid-range, all of the data and the evidence isn't bearing that out. Looking at it right now, you can look at it too. It feels like that because those games are hell. That is not what's happening in cEDH right. Other decks I would look at here, the other pile I put into it is Slot Breaker, largely play to develop mana and activate their commander over and over again. So you're going to have Rog Frost, you're going to have Sisay, you're going to have Dog Thrust. You can put Obnix into that pile too, I believe, just because Obnix is largely a creature-based combo and just starts going off and it's hard to interact with. So when you look at the, you're looking at 3 or 4 decks that are slot breakers, 3 or 4 decks that are, either mid-range or hard control. You can call those the slot decks. And then you're looking at 7 to 8 turbo decks. If anything, we have too much, that's honest to God, what's happening. People can say this is a way to get underneath it. I don't believe that. I think the slop is a counter to turn order simulate and turbo decks. But so if you're looking at this data, what do you bring to a tournament? Largely depends on what meta you're going into. But the first thing I would say is always bring the deck you're most comfortable. When I'm looking to go into a tournament, for me, it's always mid-range slop. I don't like bringing turbo into a tournament. I don't like having no agency. I don't like just dumping my hand on the table and being like, can you stop me? If they can stop, I just, get lunch and sit around. That's just not my play style. I enjoy mid-range. I enjoy slop. I enjoy, huge stack battles and interaction. So I'm always going to lean towards those decks. For me, it's I really want to know my win lines inside and out. I want to be able to explain them cleanly and clearly. So if we get to that, this is the way I'm going to win this game. And this is when I know how to push. That is the most important thing to me. What's going to be at the tournament doesn't largely affect me. It could change 1 or 2 cards, expecting a ton of Rog Thrust, and I'm playing Rogishai. Who knows? Maybe I do side in the new, Mjolnir, Hammer, or Thor. Maybe I side in the technique card that's doing 2 damage to, each creature at the table. Maybe I'm on sudden substitution. Maybe I'm volatile sword rakes to take out Arkhams, to take out Sisays. These are the small flex slots that you have that can largely take a draw, a loss to a win. What 95 cards that are absolutely being played in this deck? And what can I swap out going to this tournament that I'm afraid of? Decks that I'm afraid of that can help me in that matchup. So for me at the last when we took 13th at this, it was Molten Disaster. This just won me games I should not have won, allowed me to explain wins quickly, decisively. When the judge is standing over your shoulder, you're in extra time. How about I just earthquake the table out at split second, right? You just get ahead on life, or you have an Angel's Grace. Angel's Grace resolves, Molten Disaster, your triggers are fine. Molten Disaster for 24, game over. This card just was just a breaker. Like I would just cast this card and win the games. Very strong, and one that people are going to have to respect more moving forward. So Molten Disaster was definitely one of those ones that I had in my list for that very reason. So another card I had in my flex slots was Vivi. Was a card that Charles Bach was playing a lot when he was playing Rageshai. I asked him, he didn't sway me when we talked about it the first time, but the more and more I played it, the more and more I started to love this card. There's two big problems for Rageshai. One of the ones that I don't think is caught on is you have to pressure their life total. Yes, they're not running Ad Naus. Yes, they're not running Necro. But if you pressure their life total, if the whole table starts pressuring their life total, they can't sit there to turn 7 or 8 with no good creatures out, no blockers out, and just win the game then. If they're attacking and they're putting pressure on you, it speeds up your game plan and it makes you get out of your comfort zone much quicker. BD, when you start casting spells, has a fat ass. BD is a good block, mitigates that to a small extent. But the real reason I was playing is Vivi just wins the game with a Hullbreaker loop, right? Like that's it. Like you just Hullbreaker, start bouncing your rocks, start bouncing your Rog Rack, burn the table out. Silent, infinite, the game is over. There's no more casting spells. There's no more like I have to freeze this guy once. I have breach, I have to Savines, I have to do this. I have to put, loops with Fairy Master on the table, subtlety loops, which they can all pause there and be like, I'll have a point of interaction. There's no point of interaction with VV once you present Hullbreaker bouncing rocks. The judge will not let that happen. Do you have something right now? No. Here we go. You just dome the table out. So VV was one of my flex slots. Just make small changes that will take those draws to wins or those losses to draws. cEDH meta, healthy and diverse. I do not believe there's a problem right now with Rhystic Study, and we're about to get into it. All right. So let's talk about Rhystic Study. Throughout the last couple of weeks, there's been a huge push again to ban Rhystic Study. Players, friends of mine, change their name on Top Deck, ban Rhystic Study, and I understand where they're coming from. If you don't know, like my playgroup's backstory, too deep, my team, my playgroup, they hate this card, right? They've hated this card for years. Ken Bauman, one of the best players I know, has stopped playing it. Like he doesn't play it in his blue decks. He doesn't play it in Sakashima. He doesn't play it in Prismari. Andre didn't play it for a long time. So all these folks that I trust as players and respect as players and have spoken to me many times about this card despise this card. And I understand why, right? This is not new to me. To the players that want it banned, I understand you and I hear you. Like there's times when I'm playing cEDH games, league games that I know we will never finish in time. When there's 3 or 4 Rhystics out, a Mystic Remora, Flash Enablers, a Smothering Tide, it just evolves into absolute debauchery and there's nothing you can do to speed up the gameplay. I get it. I get all of that. And I agree with you on that. My issue is this, and this is an issue that we had on the way up to the siege. My car was Avery M. I taught Nico R. And we had a long discussion about Rhystic Study. As you guys know from my podcast and from my decks that I choose, I enjoy slop. I enjoy huge interaction battles. I enjoy 20 cards on the stack. That's just the type of magic I enjoy. So I'm going to lean towards that anyways. So that's like just a caveat that I'm throwing out there. But the discussion on the way up for me, and cEDH is not the first format I've played, right? Like I played competitively in every format you can imagine, Magic the Gathering, on the Pro Tour and Nationals, that thing. I've always enjoyed control. Sometimes it was non-blue control, mono-black control. But the biggest thing that we have on our side is trying to gain card advantage. We're burning more cards than our opponents. And cEDH, that's compounded. When I'm sitting as a control player or a mid-range player and I have to stop one of the turbo decks at the table, I'm going down cards. That's just natural. Like if I'm Force of Willing, I'm going down a card. If I'm Force of Negation, I'm going down a card. If I'm Pacting Negationing, I'm going down mana on my next turn. These are all just naturally compounded by the fact that we're playing against 3 other opponents. So if I'm going to force a will one person, I can't stop anyone else. I believe Rhystic Study is the only card that we have. Mystic Remora is fine. Esper Sentinel is fine. That is going to generate enough card advantage that there can actually be a control deck at the table. And I'll take it a step further. I think it's the only card that's going to actually mean that we can have mid-range players at the table. I look at it right now and I see like what we just talked about before. 8 turbo decks in the top 16 the last month in the cEDH meta. If you take Rhystic Study out of the equation, I believe we devolve completely into Turn Order Simulator. I believe that turbo just runs wild. So this is my argument that I had in the car. They had some good counterpoints, right? So their counterpoints to me on this is that control and mid-range will still be there. It will just evolve. Some of the points they brought up, you have to play more proactive control pieces so you're not going down cards. Cards mentioned, Opposition Agent, Deafening Silence. I don't think that stops it, right? I don't think that stops us just full-blown ran headfirst into turbo hell. And that's not necessarily the gameplay I want to play. So that goes back to when Hire put out a survey last month, right? And the community was basically split. I think it was 51 to 49. 51 said keep Rhystic, 49 said ban it. I know a lot of Rhystic players celebrated that. I don't want to play in a format where half the players are miserable. That goes without saying. And I also know from Wizards of the Coast in my long 30 years of playing Magic, that doesn't sway them either, right? Like 50%, that's not good. And like it still can be banned for that, right? Like easily can be banned for that. So I don't know where we're at, but my opinion on Rhystic Study is that going by the numbers right now and just what we're seeing in the makeup of a cEDH metagame, I don't think it's oppressive. I do feel like games where there's 4 or 5 Rhystics out and there's one turbo player and they want to push, it feels really bad. Just like playing in a control 1v1 format, a 60 card format, getting your cards counterspelled every turn, and then the Sphinx of Revelationing for 9 puts you out of the game. Like it's the same feeling, and it's not a good feeling. Control's there for a reason. Control's there to keep these other decks in check. I don't believe Control is winning enough tournaments right now. It is the impetus right now to ban Rhystic Study, and I do believe banning Rhystic Study turns us into Turn Order Simulator. And I could be wrong on this, and there's a lot of smart players that are saying this, so I would love to hear from them in a constructive way on why, other than it sometimes devolves into game states that are just, you will never finish in time, why it's bad. Because that doesn't happen every time. I do agree with the amount of clone effects that we're doing on Rhystic right now, that is bad. I do agree flash photography was seemed like a pretty innocent card to print, but I don't think it was right to print it. And I don't think you banned flash photography either. I had to vote right now, and I had a vote. Rhystic Study stays. And again, turbo players, I get it. I know it feels bad. And I know if you can get put in positions where like you can't win the game, but what? So does Dark Ritual and Necro. Dark Ritual and Necro on turn 1 or turn 2. That puts me out of the game too. Like that, like you're drawing 30 cards. The odds of me stopping you there are very minimal. So I think there's counterplays to this. The other thing I would say is we've gotten to the point with Rhystic Studies out that no one's playing responsibly. And I get why you don't, because it feels like if you're playing responsibly and another person is not, you're losing the game anyways. And so like that tends to play into why people just don't pay the one. Another counterpoint here is interact with the first Rhystic Study. This takes a lot of the clones out of the equation for the Rhystic, and people will counter that with, well, if I counter a Rhystic, the next person plays one. Okay, that's one less Rhystic on the table, and then one less in one. Like then you just have one Rhystic to blow up. Play Vorce of Vigor, your Pyroblast and your Red Element Blast work very well in Rhystic Study. And I think we have a group think right now where this is something that is easy to hate. And I want to go back to the beginning of this conversation. I do understand the points. I really do. I just feel like we're heading into turbo hell, and that's not a format I want to play in. Maybe the format you don't want to play in is Rhystic Study, and I get that as well. So we have to figure out something. But I don't think just outright banning this card is the answer. That's my take on Rhystic Study. I know it's not, I know a lot of my friends are not going to agree with it, but I'm a control player at heart. I think the format is better with Rhystic Study in it. In closing, the damn thing to be legendary, right? One Rhystic on everybody's board is not a problem. 2 or 3, I agree, that can be a problem. So some of the things I wanted to touch on, I guess, more lighthearted is the cards that came out in Marvel that I think have been overperforming. For me, King T'Challa, I've seen it played against me, didn't like it, played it. Loved it. Whenever a player draws their second card each turn, you draw a card. That includes you. So this coming down, flash speed on a card draw, following that up with a Fairy Mastermind, drawing 2 cards. The parasitic nature of this card going around when people are playing the game of Magic and drawing cards, you are getting card advantage. That seems very strong. The 3 mana is a little tough, but when you're playing a mid-range pile, not a big deal. King T'Challa, I would say, is going to see cEDH play more and more. I really like the card. Next up, we have the Fantastic Four. You guys have seen me streaming this deck. I've made a deck tech on it. I'll put a link in the comments. The Fantastic Four is a great food chain commander, and the deck plays really well. We've made 2 lists so far. We've made one with the Displacer lines, which includes Eternal Witness, Snap, Teferi, kind of thing. That one is fine. It just seems a little clunky to me. We've taken that out. Proactive interaction, and your main lines are still Hullbreaker, Underworld Breach, and Food Chain. This deck seems strong. I think it's one of the better food chain decks we've had in the format, and one that I will continue playing and hopefully take this in tournaments. And finally, Crystal Inhuman Princess. We talked about this one a little bit on the Marvel episode. As a turbo deck, I still think VV is better. So if you're doing a turbo, trying to ping the table out in one turn, I think the VV button pushing for mana more often than not is going to get you there better than Crystal the Inhuman Princess. But if you're playing a mid-range pot and you're playing interaction, you're looking to win the game later and just draw cards, I think Crystal the Human Princess is a fantastic deck. Great color pie, just like the Fantastic Four, and is very strong. On the Critical EDH League, I played against a few control shells. In the UNC server, I've seen a few builds of this deck that seem really strong to me, and one that I'm putting together right now. I'll make a few changes. I might have a deck tech or a different list up later. But Crystal the Inhuman Princess is definitely cEDH viable and definitely is going to see play. This is a very strong card, guys, and one that I see people leaning into more and more as a mid-range deck. So those are some of the cards for cEDH Buzz. All right, guys, so for events you should be at, we're just going to keep banging this drum. This is the Fishbowl 7. This is happening in San Diego on June 27th and 28th. It is run by a great human being and ambassador for the format, Hire. He pays attention to every single detail from start to finish, make sure the players have a great experience. It is just one of the best run events that you can possibly be at, and you want to support people that are good in this format and good for this format, and Hire is one of them. So San Diego, June 27th, 28th. Get in that car. If you're 10 hours away, start driving. It's a beautiful place no matter what. You scrub out, go to the ocean, get some fish tacos, hang around down near the ships. Just have fun in San Diego. Great place. If you're doing well, good for you. This is going to be up to a 15K, so this is definitely an event you want to hit. The registration is up right now. There's like 180 players already signed up, and that is just going to keep going up and up. That's how these cEDH events work. So get on down to the Fishbowl 7. This is an event you literally cannot miss, guys. If you go to one in the next few months, this is the one. All right, guys, so that's what we have for the pregame podcast, episode number 4. Sorry we ran a little late. I think this one was probably going to be like 30, 35 minutes, but I wanted to talk about Rhystic Study, get it off my chest. I know that was healing for me. I hope it was for you too. Don't be too mad at me if you're on the other side of the argument there. I understand everybody's point of view. That's just how I feel. Next week, we'll be back on episode 5. We'll have a special guest for that one for sure. Maybe we'll be talking about Rhystic Studies. The ban announcement's coming up very soon, so maybe we'll be talking about the ban announcement. And I'll be very interested to see how that plays out. Thanks to our sponsors, F6, Tame Dog, Deck Tech's on the way. Like, subscribe, all that thing, and catch me on stream. We'll be streaming the Fantastic Four starting tomorrow, at least for the next couple days until we switch decks. Thanks a lot, guys. Play nice with one another. Remember, it's just a game, and just keep spreading the gospel of cEDH. That's all I do.